So here I am sitting with Alvin Fletcher of Prosperity Legal Services. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I figure we start off, we met just about a year ago, I think, right? At Shari and Eric's house.
Kid's birthday party.
Yeah, right.
How else do you meet people?
No, as an adult, that's really the only thing you've got. Birthday parties on the weekends.
Yeah.
And more birthday parties on the weekends.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. I think we had 2 or 3 that weekend for sure. So, no, that was cool. And I don't even know. I think we started talking about the, I guess the sober living, and you had a lab that was running, and I think you were just starting to get that like closed out and shut down around that time.
Decided at that point to hang up the shingle and start practicing real law again.
Yeah.
So that's so it started there, and it's kind of developed since then.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really interesting topic for me. Obviously, you know the story that I've got about it. My brief introduction into the space that imploded and did not go well. But you had some success in it, so that's awesome.
It went well until it didn't, and
Sure.
that's how a lot of business and entrepreneurial stuff goes. But came out okay. Like I said, it was a good run. I had about 7 or 8 years in the medical lab industry, and now, like I said, hanging the shingle up again and practicing real estate and estate planning.
Yeah. So you started Prosperity Legal Services when?
I think first official day is middle of January of 24.
Yeah. Okay. So just over a year in business.
Yeah, so I've been an attorney for almost 16 years now. Getting a little older.
Yeah.
It happens. It's weird to say that number out loud, but yeah, 16 years. My knees feel it more so than the rest of me, but practicing law for 16 years.
The shoulder too, right? Because you were in a sling when we
gosh.
first met. Yeah. I guess that was the other thing.
Need to quit thinking I'm athletic. That's probably I need to stop that and maybe switch sports or just be more of a spectator.
Yeah, sure. You could be a coach.
Yeah.
Coach Phoenix and the girls. And,
Yes. So, but no, I practice law now for, like I said, 16 years. I've done personal injury. I've done family. I've done criminal law. I've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
First actual trial was in like 3 weeks after getting my bar results. So it was a fun experience against Billy Ray Cyrus's uncle in Lawrence County, Kentucky.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was that's how you do it.
Yeah,
You start, you just hit the floor running, and trial by fire. Had about 25 trials in the first couple years of practice.
Okay.
So a lot then. Like I said, I've been pricing for a while, insurance defense, and then I wanted to get into sales. From that, entered into the medical laboratory space. Went well for a while. Then decided to kind of switch careers, and now I'm doing estate planning and real estate. So that's where, January of 2024 is when I opened the practice.
Awesome. And you've already done quite a bit with us, obviously, on the real estate front, not just from title, but also just tedious real estate law needs. And that's been really helpful for us because there's not a lot of lawyers out there that just practice real estate law. Most of them are obviously doing title work or, some other form of maybe, honestly, I don't really know what else they're doing in real estate besides title work. So
there are some very specific things that certain real estate lawyers do. Mine's a little bit more generalized. So I am a law firm that actually also owns a title company. A lot of the title companies will just be title specific. And they won't practice law. Mine's a variation of that. Like I said, I'm a law firm first that also does title. I can do both, and I think there's a benefit. So when you have general real estate questions, I can help you with those as well.
Yeah, and that's honestly, it's super important. When we're talking about evictions for rentals, or we're talking about, just like contract law, which is huge. I think that's one of the biggest things about real estate that us as agents really need more help with. That's something that I've always thought we have really not a lot of education when it comes to getting our license, and they've increased the amount of hours that you need. And there's a law component for the continuing education each year, but even still, it's something that is really kind of that's an area of real estate for agents that is underwhelming. When you talk to most of the agents out there, they don't understand contract law as well as they should to be able to help somebody buy or sell property. And so with you kind of being able to advise on that front and then also help with, closing a property, that's really something, that's, I think it's important.
I think that with most things, law especially, and other professions, it's not extremely difficult until it is. right?
Sure.
It is, with the real estate, with realtors, I think they know how to do certain things really well.
Yeah.
And it's great until something comes up, right?
Yeah.
There's always this one instance that could hinder the process, or there's a contract they don't understand, and that's where we can kind of come in.
Yeah.
Is help explain, how to move and how to proceed from that point.
Right. Well, and the one thing I know we've asked you about multiple times, just even this year alone already, when it comes to contract, it's interesting because he who has the money holds all the cards. And we've had several instances this year where a contract was signed and then the buyer or seller on the other side got cold feet or something happened and then they just bailed on the contract. And the only recourse you have is to pursue them legally. But are you really going to do that over $500, $1,000, even $5,000 when it comes down to the legal cost associated with filing, going through depositions, going through, even a trial? Yeah, sure. Maybe you get that back, but then you're probably not awarded the attorney fees on the other side anyway.
It's that's the kind of the dirty part of law and how things work in the world, right? It is we love having contracts, and it's important that you have a contract and it's written the right way. But enforcing the contract is the difficult part, right? A lot of the times we will we believe we're entitled to certain things, and we probably are. However, to get the court to order that costs money and time and effort, and not everyone has that ability to pursue those things.
Right.
So a lot of times we suggest, even in certain real estate contracts, we offer or push for mediation or arbitration, something along those lines. But that still costs money as well. So if you have $1,000 earnest money deposit, is it worth that pursuit to potentially get that money back?
Right.
So everyone's different. Every situation is going to be have different answers to that, and every client that you have is going to feel differently about that as well. Most of the time, it depends on the market. If it is a buyer or seller's market, if you can move property fast, you'll move on quickly, find someone else to move in there. But there's certain times when you're relying upon that buyer to kind of move forward, and they kind of leave you high and dry. So it just depends. Sometimes we let emotions, and our job as attorneys are to hey, let's remove emotions from this and discuss how this will actually work, how both sides will approach this, and can you even serve the other side? Are they in the state, out of state? Can we find them? These are all the questions that we look for as attorneys about how we're going to move forward. Yeah,
I think you do a good job of that. There's some attorneys out there that are extremely litigious, and their first reaction is, okay, let's go ahead. Let's sign this contract. You'll retain me for services. I'll start billing you hourly, and then we'll go ahead and just pursue this person. Your approach with me anyway so far has kind of been, hey, well, let's break it down. This is what it's going to cost. This is, how much time I'm going to have to put into it just to even get to this point. And knowing that alone, and then knowing you're not going to get my attorney fees paid back, even if you do win this, is it worth your time? And that's a step back approach that I think is really important to take. So I think, that's helped me not necessarily pursue certain things. Obviously, it goes back to contracts, right? I mean, I've always been under the assumption that contracts are something that is solid and you're bound by the law and you have recourse against somebody if there's a contract that is signed and voided. So, or not executed, I should say, not voided. But we've learned this year very quickly, so many instances where that just isn't the case and doesn't make sense.
Well, once again, they are valid.
Yeah, right,
they can be pursued, but it comes into the time and effort.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like whether it's worth. I mean, I love being paid money for things.
Yeah, right.
Just if you want to pay me money for things, I'm happy to do most things.
Sure.
But I think it's unfair to the client.
Yeah.
It is. You could pay me $5,000, $10,000 to recover you $1,000. That doesn't make sense because I'm being unfair to you if I know how this will go.
Right.
So,
right.
And that's good. I think it's important that you sit down and chat with your attorney or whoever you have at the beginning of this to see what this actually looks like.
Well, that's how you retain clients. You can have customers all day long, but you're retaining clients by taking that approach and making sure that people understand you have their best interest ultimately. You're not just trying to dig into their pocket and see what kind of money they've got and then go home rich. You're trying to keep a client and earn their business moving forward, which is great because you have a full legal service that you offer, not just, a one-trick pony doing one thing. And that's been awesome for us. I know Andy has talked to you about some contracts that he's got, and we've had a few other agents who've reached out. So we really appreciate it. We're happy to be working with you.
And I appreciate you all. And I mean, we're in Louisville. It's a big but small community. Life is all about those relationships. I think you have to treat people fairly. It's easy to be desperate and charge people money to get paid for that day. But I think I said, this is long term. I think all relationships and a law firm like mine, it's about building that trust, building those relationships with you, other real estate firms, or people just individually in the community.
Yeah, 100%. And so going to your title services, I know in the winter you did a winter wave. That was a great promotion. I thought that was genius. I may or may not have had a hand in that. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was really good. And obviously we tried to utilize you for services as often as we could. And, I think you helped out both sides, buyers and sellers, which is not generally the case. Obviously when we bring a buyer to a contract, we generally on the buyer side are the ones that select the title company. And we even were able to get some of the buyers that came and made offers on our listings to use you all as well. So,
yeah, it was so the winter wave. Just so everyone here understands, I waived the settlement fee for the buyers. We knew that the market's been a little crazy over the last few months, and I thought from our perspective, how can we help those that are pursuing a home that those closing costs, they add up. You want to buy a house and the money is already kind of at limit when you're there. So I thought, hey, this is what I did for promotional reasons to advertise myself and to help those that need it. So I waived around $500 in the closing fee for the buyer. And we're always open to and willing to not negotiate, but to work with those that are buying and selling to make sure that everyone can come away happy with the deal that they're going through.
Absolutely. And that helped out several of our clients in a big way. When we were negotiating on the initial terms, I was able to tell them, hey, let's figure out what Alvin might charge you for these closing costs. And that way you have, a more finite picture of the numbers at the end of the deal here. And maybe that'll help when you're making that offer. You can understand, all right, this is what I'm committing to pay. And then from here, I understand that by the time I get to the end of the process, I'm not out that much more money, but there's been plenty of times, and it's not necessarily on us, but I've taken clients to title companies that I've used time and time again. And even I'm a little, blown away by the cost, and there's various reasons for that. It's not like a title company is trying to take advantage of us or our client, but there's just, a lot of variables when you're looking at a contract. I mean, it could be, or for a title company to look at what their costs are going to be on a contract. Could be purchase price, could be location, could be any number of things, right? Kentucky, Indiana, Florida, they're all different. So I thought that was great that you offered up, a discount. And so we appreciated it. Our clients appreciated it. And I'm glad we're able to kind of talk about it so other people understand, that you have more flexibility as, a title service and also legal service. So, I think that's something that not a lot of title companies out there are necessarily offering or advertising or promoting, and that's going to help you stand out.
I appreciate it. It's very in effect because new home buyers, everyone's trying to do their job, right? And there's just fees that, people providing services that they may not be aware of at the beginning of this process. They just kind of add up, but they're all there for important reasons, And like I said, my idea was just like, how can I help them a little bit along the way? Yeah.
No, that's great. So I guess the other side here, I mean, you don't just practice law, you're also an investor yourself. And that's a big part of our brokerage is that, every one of our agents, I believe right now, is an investor themselves. And we pride ourselves on that. For us, we look at that as kind of like a base salary when you're out there, as a 1099 employee, trying to sell real estate. It's good to still have something that is coming in while you're sleeping each month. So for you, you've got some property and I think it's been as fun of a ride for you as it is for the
roller
rest of us.
coaster, ups and down. Good tenants are great. Bad tenants are not as much fun to deal with.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons I got into the real estate law and for the title company was that my wife and I have invested in real estate. We own multiple properties or doors. We have several renters. We've done the Section 8. We've done multifamily. We have single family residential. We've invested in several places, not only in Louisville but also in Eastern Kentucky where I'm from, and it's went well. Like I said, when it goes well, it's great. But there's always the little things that you have to keep up with, and I think you and your people probably are aware of those. That investing, it's not, is it passable income or what do we call it?
Passive income.
Passive income.
Yeah, making money while you sleep.
Investing in real estate's not always that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I hope people, and I know your people do as well, but like, what you're doing when you get into it, right? It is that roof needs fixed or, water leak. Like make sure you get a property at a good location that you can flip it or rent it the right way. But investing it's long term unless it's short term, right? There's different ways to do the investing, and I know you have your company as well that does short term, does flips, does wholesaling, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But also long term investing.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you helped us. You mentioned multiple doors there. You actually closed an eightplex for us. So
was that last month or
that was 2 months ago?
2 months ago.
Yeah,
December.
January.
Oh, January. Okay.
No. Yeah. It was January's first month of the year, but. Yeah, I mean, so that's another thing. You're not just pigeonholed in residential. You also can close commercial transactions, and that's another added benefit because we honestly have closed with a few title companies, and they really try to just stay residential focused, and that's fine. That's great. That's the majority of our business, but it was awesome to be able to bring that to you, and you said, "Yeah, no problem, I can do it."
Yeah, no, like I said, I think it was a great opportunity to learn, and hopefully your buyer is happy with.
He was thrilled.
Yeah, it was great.
Wasn't he a Buffalo Bills fan or?
It hurts to talk about them a little bit, after the playoff losses, but yeah, he was. He's been to a couple games.
Yeah,
what
right.
It was.
Yeah,
I've been to too many, and we've won more than we lost, except for the playoffs.
Yeah, there you go. Super Bowls are not your all's forte, but that's all right. That's okay. So, but no, that's great. I mean, I think investing and having that background of understanding what a landlord goes through, and not just from a legal perspective, but on a personal level too, just knowing the emotions that you go through dealing with tenants, dealing with people. That is something that you can't read in a book. It's experiential, 100%. And I know over the decade that I think my wife and I have invested in rental property, we have been through, I don't know, it feels like we've encountered every scenario possible, but of course there's so many more along the way, and I'll continue to realize those.
Yep.
And as we transition our investing from, single family rentals on a long-term basis to, larger commercial property, I'm realizing a whole new set of challenges and a whole new set of just kind of intricate details that get overlooked, and then there's conversations that have to be had, and people have to be flexible, and it's just a very different way of handling it. But the passive income, we're of the mentality that if you switch it over and you can get a strong commercial tenant that has a great space in a perfect location, that's mailbox money.
I think it's great. You have to be adaptable or flexible with any investing that you do, because you can have the perfect contract, the perfect deal, perfect tenant. It's just never going to stay that way.
Yeah.
There's always chances you have to be able to react to whatever's in front of you. And I think that's a big part of investing here. It's like we thought we were going to get this cap rate or this number, and it could change.
Yeah.
But as long as you're ready and prepared to do it, the studying, the conversations that you have, like I said, working with a tenant or working with whoever you're with, just knowing that it could be changes, but be ready for them.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you have to be adaptable. That's, during COVID especially, we adapted. That was like, we went from having all these, just small single-family long-term rentals, and then it's not that a bunch of tenants started bailing on us, but we had some vacancies, and we weren't sure how to fill them because we didn't know what was going to happen with the world. Nobody did. And then we got into short-term rentals. We had 1 or 2 Airbnbs at the time, and it was kind of like, okay, wait, we I think we figured out what we should be doing because couldn't do evictions during that time. And that was unnerving, right? So then we figured out, okay, we can make X amount just furnishing these properties. I went through the cut process. I don't know how many times. I'm even doing it right now for a client, trying to help them get one. And we got all these conditional use permits on the majority of our properties, started furnishing them, started renting them out, and we adapted. And it's not a model that I truly love. I think people assume I'm an Airbnb guy. I'm not. I'm actually not a fan of it at all. It's hospitality. It's not real estate.
It's all different.
Yeah, I don't want people calling me all hours of the night saying, hey, I can't turn up the temperature on your smart thermostat.
Yeah.
It's like it's smart for a reason. It detects when you're home and it'll go up automatically. Don't worry about it. There's just so many things that you have to adapt to in real estate. So that's a great comment that you brought up.
Those Airbnbs, certain counties, cities don't like them as much. HOAs, they're making it a little bit more difficult to exist in this area. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But like I said, the government, COVID, there's things that you can't control that you just have to react to.
Right.
So
well, and I think, even in the neighborhood meeting that I hosted last night for my client, the neighbors were saying, well, why here? What's so important about doing a short-term rental with this specific property, in a residential neighborhood? And I said, well, you've got the Louisville Zoo, you've got the Mega Caverns, you've got Bellarmine, Joe Creason Park, Fairgrounds, Broadbent Arena, and Kentucky Kingdom, all within a 2-mile radius of this property. Yeah. Then you got a fire department that's under 3 miles away and a police department that is 3 miles away. So that's why this particular property works on a short-term rental basis. And they said, well, why can't those people just stay in hotels? And I said, well, that'd be great if they could, but we don't have enough hotels to support people in this town. Louder Than Life and Bourbon and Beyond brought in over 100,000 people last year. We don't have enough hotels. People had to stay in Lexington. They had to stay in Frankfort.
Yeah.
I think people stayed as far up as Northern Kentucky. And they were asking, well, why don't we build more hotels? I said, why don't you ask Mayor Greenberg why we don't build more hotels? Even the developments that we're trying to get done, it has been a challenge from start to finish, and we continue to see those challenges in the process. And I know you sort of have a little background in politics, so what's your take on the progression or lack thereof in the city of Louisville?
I'm not sure if I have as particular take. I do want when I go to other cities similar size to ours, I wish there was a plan in place a little bit more, and I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's things that we're not even aware of that we want to bring more commerce, more people into the city of Louisville. Maybe if we adapt something similar to these, going to Indianapolis or going to Nashville and Cincinnati, we were on par with them for a long time. Yeah. But now, it's a little disheartening. I'm not a native to Louisville, but I've been here and I want to see more of an illustrious, booming downtown area, and losing Humana or losing certain places. We have these really nice buildings that are unoccupied. So I would like to see how we're bringing people here. I hate driving down there and no one's at lunch, driving downtown and you expect to see this a little bit busier, or even on the weekends, we go to the basketball games. Yeah. We like to do that, and a concert. But other than that, sometimes we don't have the people, the population there.
It is interesting. I was talking with one of the owners of Against the Grain yesterday as well. They're looking at our site on Main Street to maybe help, kind of design some of the basement equipment. And he was telling me that their revenue at the Louisville Slugger location, the original location, is, I think he said 75% transient business, just out-of-towners. And when it first opened 15, 16 years ago, it was about 75% locals. And I used to go in there.
We have amazing facilities.
Yeah.
The restaurants are top notch.
Yep.
And we have great people. We have a great location for expansion. We can do what we need to. I just wish, like I said, we had more of a driving force to get them there.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to bring back our CBD because otherwise that's the heart of the city, and right now it is on a lifeline. It's not looking good. So, well, we can touch on that another time, but just wanted to get your take. So that's good. Well, what is something that you are actively seeking out for your business? What are your needs? What are your wants? How can we help? How can our followers and our people what can they do to help grow your business and help support you?
Just more contacts. This is I'm relatively new to the title and to the real estate world here in Louisville. So I've been trying to make those connections, and I think this is all, it needs to happen organically, right? If you see me, if I have the opportunity to speak to someone, I would love to do so. I'm really interested in this for coffee, for lunch. Dinner's a little harder now with 3 kids. It's hard to leave on a Tuesday or Friday night to go out to dinner, but happy to do that as well. So I've been doing some educational seminars or CLE type actions. Not really CLE, but at least learning law while we're hanging out. And if anyone's ever interested in that, smaller boutique law for real estate firms or just new realtors maybe in the market that would love to just sit down and chat, I'd like to do that. But it's just building this networking, this connection. I met you organically, like I said, over a year ago, and hopefully I'll meet some more people that follow you that they're around here locally.
Absolutely, and once our new office building is done, our speakeasy basement space, obviously we do have that sort of in the front of the space, we're going to have an area for networking and speakers to come in, and our goal is to try to pack the house and have you come down and kind of spill your knowledge and tell us what we don't know and help us with our real estate, help us with estate planning, help us with anything that, requires a legal background that we don't have the knowledge for. And
one thing I'm doing, I just signed you up for it. So I'm doing this derby.
Yeah.
So if you're so willing, want to reach out to me, I will give you a little Prosperity Legal Services horse, and you'll get assigned a number for the derby. So I'm giving out around 80 horses for this, 1 through 20, 4 times. So if you get a horse number, what horse number?
7.
So if 7 wins,
tell everybody don't pick 7.
Don't pick 7. If 7 wins, you'll be put into a drawing with the other people that had selected 7, the 4 others, and you'll be in a drawing for $1,000. The other contestants that are in that final drawing, they would get $50 gift cards.
Awesome.
So I've been out giving away horses. It's a cute little horse, Prosperity Legal Service you'll have there. Hopefully you keep it on your desk for the next couple of months up until Derby.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if you're interested, please reach out to me. I'll sign them up. I'll drop off a horse and shake some hands, buy some coffee.
There you go. Kiss some babies.
Kiss some babies.
Yeah. That's a great promotion. I thought that was amazing when you first sent that to me, and I was kind of confused, and then I realized, oh yeah, Derby's coming up. Catches up so quick.
Less than 2 months.
Yeah.
Going this year?
I don't know if we will. Probably not. Yeah. We're the money is going out for the office and the furniture and the equipment and everything else. That's
but think of what you can win, Barrett.
That's true.
Just take all that money, invest into gambling.
That's it. You're right. That's a great investment. I'm putting it all on black.
Yeah. There you go.
That's it. But no, you're really good at these promotions, and I commend you for that. It's awesome when we're doing a closing in your office, the big map that you have where you have people put a pin wherever the house is. And it is hilarious how no one can figure out where the house is on the map. Yeah. That is priceless.
Yeah. But I have a large map in our closing room. And so my idea was, hey, put me on the map when you're buying a home. And it's a very detailed map. It's pretty large. And I know it's not surprising, but I think we rely on Google Maps so much or MapQuest.
Yeah.
And we just follow that without actually looking at the city itself or the county, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun watching people try to find the house.
Yeah.
And I think you get more of an ownership that way too. It's like, okay, I'm in northeast of Louisville here or of Jefferson County. And it's fun. The closing process should be fun, in my opinion. Right. It can be a stressful situation over a couple months. Some of these people are buying the biggest investment they'll ever have in their entire life. So let me do all the hard stuff with the law, let the lenders, with the realtors work behind the scenes. But for the buyer or seller, this should be a good experience, right? And why couldn't it be? The law is the law, but you're allowed to enjoy your time while we're making sure everything's buttoned up. So yeah. We'll eat some donuts.
I love it.
We'll put our pin on the map, take some pictures.
That's it.
It needs to be a good experience. I want everyone to come away having enjoyed themselves that day because this can be a stressful situation.
We've had a few of those, yeah. And you've got the kids' playroom. That comes in handy. That's a good little addition there.
All rooms are kids' playrooms.
Well,
just
sure,
to be, now after having 3.
Yeah.
But no, I have a nice little house that my dad built for me when we did this. It's like an outline that your kids have colored with chalk. more than once.
All the way over that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we have people with us. We're buying a home. Our kids are with us. Let's keep them entertained.
Yeah.
You have some documents to sign. We'll be done. Let the kids play.
It's great. I mean, really, that's not what you get in most title companies. So again, it provides an extra little atmosphere for the closing that does keep people calm and keeps them sort of entertained in a way. And I think that is something that most title companies, maybe they're just so big that you walk into the building, they tell you what room you're in, and there's nothing wrong with that, the business professionalism aspect of that, but you do kind of cater to, the family approach and the entertainment approach. And I think that is really unique. I think that's special. So that's something that we have obviously utilized. My children have sat in there while we waited for, a wire to hit, and they managed to cover every inch of that chalkboard. So, I just think it's great. Really, it's awesome.
I like doing this because it is personal, right? As a lawyer, you're in people's lives a lot. You learn things about them, and you want them to be comfortable. And that's the same way with the house and the buying exchange. I'll have some conversations with the buyer or seller up until that closing date, but it is important that they know they're not just a number that's coming to close. And I do understand that if you're doing 30 or 40 a day, it's a little harder to do that. But as of right now, I think I can cater to the needs of individuals and of each process, each buying process.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. Mm-hmm. Is there any specific aspect of law that you really enjoy practicing outside of real estate, outside of title work?
So half my firm is devoted to estate planning. I do real estate and estate planning. And if you're aware of of title, one of the things that we deal with the most is usually family and estate planning. So your probates, if you actually have authority to sell that home or buy that home, and they go well together. So part of like I said, part of my practice is the estate planning. So I do a lot of wills. I do mostly trusts, powers of attorney, and those can be anything. That could be financial. That could be you're gone for a summer and you need dad or mom to take care of things while you're in Europe. There's powers of attorneys you have a lot of options with that. So create those documents, guardianship forms, living wills. There's a lot to estate planning, and I feel like it's a little people know they need these documents. Mm-hmm. If you've ever had a friend or family member that went through probate, where this could take 6 months to 2 years to move real estate. Mom passed away. I need to take over bills, but there was no will in place. There was no trust in place. So you are now hiring an attorney more than likely to go to court and spend this time, this extra effort. What I like to do is we want to avoid all of that. We want you to come to me to sit down and prepare your estate, so we can do that the right way, right? It's a little cost up front, but it saves. There's a peace of mind that knowing your children or someone else is taken care of, and they don't have to go through the stress of going to court and asking for permission to move certain assets.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy this. It kind of came about. Law's strange. Like I got into real estate law or title because we bought and invested in properties, and I was like, this is interesting. Wife and I were going to Europe, and we didn't have our estate plan completed. This was a few years ago, and we were thinking, like, if something happens to us on this plane, how are our children provided for? So if you're under the age of 18, you can't receive money. So someone else has to receive that for you. So what we did is we created a trust, a revocable living trust. So now our assets are retitled, and I can help you do those sort of things. And now the successor trustee, which is our brother-in-law, which is great, would be able to just take over everything within a couple days and take care of our children, take care of our assets, and make sure everyone is safe and secure instead of worrying about what happens next to our kids or to our assets.
Yeah. And upon your death, does that living trust become, irrevocable?
Irrevocable. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's two spouses. It's a joint, but yes, it becomes irrevocable.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Revocable means you can change anything that you want to. You can move assets in. You can move assets out. You can rip it up if you wanted to. So that's the benefit of that. But the downside is if you can get to it, creditors can too.
Yeah, right.
So you can't hide money through a revocable living trust, but it does help avoid probate, and it does you can establish guardianships through your will, but establish guardianships and a plan in place for I always say this, like our kids are young. If they were to receive a couple $1 million at the age of 18, that could change their life for the rest, and not for the better. Sure. I can imagine if somebody gave me $1 million when I was 18,
right.
how that would work. I probably wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, sure.
But you can set up things, you can structure your trust where they can receive a percentage at the age of 25 or at 30 and 35 or all three of those times. And the successor trustee can take care of that child, or that even when they're adults, take care of them with, it's called HIMSS, Health, Education, Maintenance Support, over those years. So that if the money's in the trust, they can be provided for. But they would get disbursements at certain ages.
Yeah. Okay.
I always like bringing this one up. There's a thing called a beach bum trust, so you can the child has to earn the money.
Right.
So they don't just get a check outright, but if they start to earn it, they have a job. The trustee can match it. There are fun things with trusts.
Yeah.
I just wrote one that we are taking care of some cats, and initially it was kind of. Yeah, I took it as it's kind of funny, right? It was like, oh, well, they're cats. But to these people, this is the most important thing in their lives.
Sure.
So the demeanor a little changes. Like once you kind of think like to him or her, these pets are more important than anything else that they've ever had. So it's my job to make sure we set up a proper way to take care of them if something happens.
Yeah.
So it's you get a little older, you realize that things can be important that you may not initially thought.
Right.
So yeah, but. You structure these trusts; they're up to you. It becomes the guidebook to how these funds are dispersed.
It's funny. I did not write Mr. Bigglesworth into our trust, but so we set up a trust when we set up our first LLC, and I remember when I did that, one of my friends caught wind of it, or we were talking about it, just kind of discussing estate planning and how we were all set up, and we had Blair at the time, so she wasn't even a year old at that point, and everyone. That I talked to, they were like, well, why would you set up a trust? You're not worth millions of dollars. And I said, well, not yet, but I plan to be. And it doesn't matter if I'm worth it now or in the future or never. The trust still has value because we own investment properties and we need to protect those, and we need to protect our children, and make sure that they can inherit those as clean as possible. Because as we know, death is not clean. There's so many things that you have to deal with when, a loved one passes away. So that was something that we wanted to be very cognizant of. And just like you, we had traveled to Ireland the year before we had Blair. And at the time, no children, didn't really think about it. We weren't married. It wasn't a big deal. And so then life hit us really fast, and we had to start putting all those puzzle pieces into place. And I just, I was confused at the time. I didn't know anything about it. And I still don't know that much about it. So that's probably a conversation we need to have. But we did that. We structured this entire estate and will and, protection. And I just thought it was sort of astounding, the lack of knowledge by the general population that thought a trust was something that is only reserved for the rich.
TV, when we were young, it was, oh, you're watching a TV show, and it's like, oh, you're the trust fund kid.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had money, right? And so it was fun to say that. But there's a big misnomer about what the trust actually does. There's no minimum income, right? Certain things can move through probate if under $15,000 or $30,000. You can move it with permission, but you still have to get that permission.
Yeah.
Even if it's a limited number of assets, any real estate has to go through probate if it's not in a trust. So there's still a value with that one. And I'm not giving out legal advice, but there are certain things that you need to look at here. But a trust. If your kids are under 18, they can't receive that money, no matter how big that check would be. But you can set up and you can care about them in the future. You're caring about them later on in life, and you're hoping that you can be there. But if not, you did this for a reason for them.
Yeah. Well, and again, I just think that there is such a lack of information, or misinformation, really, is what I found. And so offering that service that coincides with real estate is vitally important. And most people that are investing in real estate, they know they need to set up an LLC, but they may not understand, sort of the back end work that needs to be applied as well. Having your estate and all your affairs in order in case something happens to you. And in this business, I've lost, a mentor and a friend who felt like a mentor, two guys in their 50s, one to COVID and one to an incident recently. And it was just really unfortunate, but I know both of those guys were really well taken care of and very well prepared for it. And their wives and families, are in fine shape today because they understood that it wasn't just, protecting this property in this LLC. There was a much bigger picture that they had to, make sure was already mapped out. But they were in their 50s, so people had probably been telling them for, at least a decade, hey, you need to make sure that you've got a trust or a will in place. At what age, because I was in my 20s when I did all this, what age would you say somebody should really start looking into it and considering it? Or what stage in life or, event, whatever?
It's good to have a will, after the age of 18, just to have it.
Sure.
There is, if you have any type of assets, it's nice to have a will. It's good to write down to see who you are, realize that, you're so young at that age, right? To even think, you're not really becoming an adult till you're almost your 30.
Sure.
Even now, I'm in my 40s, and I feel like, I'm learning stuff all the time.
Right.
But for serious, when you start collecting assets, it's nice to know you want it to go to where you want. I mean, you've earned these things, right? It doesn't matter how much the value of the assets, you've earned them, right? So why not have the say so about where they go? Okay. I will always say if you have children, it's vitally important to set up who the guardian would be of your children.
Yep.
Because, if you're, like I said, the age doesn't matter for the children part. So if you're over 25, you had your first child, non-dependent of your assets, who's going to take care of that child if something happens to you? We all think we're immortal, but we're not. So if you and your spouse pass away and the child is left by itself, someone will have to go petition the court to take over guardianship of your child. If we already prepare those documents, who's going to take it. And I usually list multiple people there. So you have, mom, and then maybe someone younger or a friend. So you have multiple people that that your child is taken care of. So you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
I think the people that don't use as much as they should are that 25 to 40-year-old range. Because we have babies, it's tough spending money. I mean, it's just the market is like no one likes spending money all the time, right? And I'm literally creating documents that you're really not going to use unless you have to,
right?
And there's a benefit to that. So it's one of those self-realizations that I'm not going to be here forever. I want these assets to be moved. I want this to be able to take care of my children. Okay?
Absolutely.
So it is nice to be able to say that. And how many times have you been in the hospital? Like, do you have a living will in place? They always ask that on the check.
Right.
It's nice to be able to say, yes, I do have one. They don't have to keep asking you about that over and over again. So it's a little different than but it's a part of the estate planning package.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about it because this is something that not a lot of people have that much information about. It is not talked about that often, at least not often enough. When I sold life and health insurance right out of college, I was selling people their death policies. And unfortunately, I didn't really understand that going into it. I didn't have a life insurance policy, didn't know anything about it. I had to read a bunch of information to take the exam, and then I was out there learning while knocking on doors. And it was sad. It was a very sort of it was a world that I wasn't familiar with. And when I started to see where some people were later in life and how they still had to work because they didn't set themselves up for retirement or things that happened in their life where they weren't protected or their assets weren't protected, it slapped me in the face really hard. And it was a rationalization that I never thought I would, come across, right? I mean, it was out of sight, out of mind. And that's what life insurance is for a lot of people. It's out of sight, out of mind. You don't think about it. That's what estate planning is for a lot of people. You don't think about it. And then, when something bad happens and you finally start to think, oh, wow, what would happen here? Sometimes it can be too late. And
every time that I speak to a friend or a new acquaintance, they ask me what I do, estate planning, like, I need to get that will and trust done.
Yeah.
Like internally, you need to do it.
Yeah.
I can help you push through to accomplish this. Not the easiest, but the people that contact me directly are usually someone that had a bad experience or knew someone that had that bad experience.
Right.
Right. So when you die without a will, it's called intestate. You die. You have to. The state of Kentucky has its own rules about how items are divided.
Right.
And percentages where. And it's not always guaranteed. Even if you're married, all your documents might not be transferable the way you think they are.
Sure.
Your spouse might not be on the deed, or there could be a bank account where they're not on there. So I'll help you go through these things to say, like, let me see everything here. Whose name is this? Who are you both on this as a beneficiary or on the policy? So there's a lot of things to the estate planning part that we don't think about until something bad happens.
Yeah.
Or it's like my mother's brother passed away, and we just remember it was the worst ordeal ever because we had to go to probate court, and they're doing their best, but there's backlogs here. It takes a while.
Up to 2 years, right?
Yeah, it can go longer,
Yeah,
but there's a minimum of 6 months with most probate. And you're looking at trying to take over things. So you'll be paying money out of your own pocket and hopefully get reimbursed by the estate if there's anything in there. But there's ways we can take care of that now. So you pay an attorney like myself to help you prepare these documents. We sit down, you feel comfortable with everything. If you don't do that, there's a chance that your estate or your children or someone else will have to pay another attorney later to do the things that we could have taken care of in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we talked on that, and I do think it's important that you offer that service, and we wanted to, kind of share the spotlight on that. And
you mentioned asset protect, the LLCs. That's a nice mid ground between the two.
Right.
Liability is really important,
Yes.
especially with real estate.
Yes.
You don't want, insurance is number one, but second, you don't want you to be personally liable for things like certain buildings or rentals, that sort of thing. We don't want you to be held liable for that. So let us create entities to protect you and protect your investments and your family.
And regarding LLCs, what is your recommended risk level per LLC? Do you like the one property, one LLC policy, or do you buy into the $1 million per LLC, or what is your strategy?
Everything it depends. It is, if you have 8 separate units, you don't want them attaching to everything, right? You can get a huge insurance policy, and maybe that cost efficiently that makes sense, right? You want to make sure you're covered and they can't come after you independently. But I think the properties are specific. If they're next to each other or if they're in different places, I think that can vary.
Yeah.
So, as an attorney, it always like, let us review this. Let's sit down and discuss what I think would be the best case. The creation of multiple LLCs is not a very difficult thing for us to do. We can help you through that, or creating a different entity, can always help with that. Or you may have a different plan. I want a larger umbrella company to control these different LLCs, and there's land trusts. There's different ways to do this.
Yeah.
So there's never a one size fits all with that.
Yeah.
It just depends on how much work you want your accountant to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that will be keeping up with where the money's going and flowing. But I always say that you make sure it's separate though. If you do create these, make sure you don't use this as your personal piggy bank.
Right.
To say, like, it is a separate entity. You treat it as such.
And with our commercial transaction that we completed together, I think you helped our buyer actually set up an LLC, right?
Not yet.
No?
I don't think that was the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
we spoke about it.
That's right.
There was questions about creating one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if you set that up for him or if he had somebody else.
There was, I'm not particularly sure about this one, but there was a discussion about this. I would always recommend it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But they could have come there with one before. But,
right.
But we talked about it.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I mean, I think this is really good information for everyone to understand. It's, again, not talked about enough, in my opinion, and hopefully we can try to bring some clients, customers your way, and help people get set up either for investing in real estate, setting up their estate, making sure that they're protected one way or another, or if they just need legal advice. A lot of our investors, they'll contact me. Hey, do you have somebody that does evictions, or do you have somebody that can help me with a city situation with citations and whatnot? And there's all these different things that pop up, as you know, and most of us know. And sometimes I can give them a quick answer, but when it comes to the legal side, obviously I'm not an attorney, so I don't try to dabble into it.
Best not to.
Yes, correct. So I don't even bother giving them the high level information. I've been passing them over to you, and you've done a great job so far with all of our clients. So appreciate that.
Appreciate the support.
And we'll definitely keep sending them your way. So I guess final notes here. where can people, contact you at? Do you have a website? Do you have?
I do.
Okay.
So Prosperity Legal Services. So the .com, or you go pls-ky.com.
Okay.
I'm over in Middletown, so Shelbyville Road. There's a Taco City. I'm behind in the Brick Professional Buildings, Suite 5 over there, 11603 Shelbyville Road, Suite 5. I'm there most days during the week. I have legal assistant. I have answering services. Whoever needs to contact me. So I am always willing to work with you and meet with whoever I need to.
Awesome.
So we're growing here. Like this is fun. This is fun stuff.
Right. And we're trying to help you grow.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah, we want to get that customer base up and just get your name out there. I mean, you're doing really good stuff and you're covering a wide, gamut of services that do coincide. I mean, contrary to what some people may think, all of these things, estate planning and the real estate services and the title services, they're all intertwined. And so it's good that you're able to kind of be able to sort of be a Swiss Army knife from that front. So it's been helpful for me. It's been helpful for the rest of our brokerage, and we appreciate it again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all you've done. And you'll be selling one of my houses soon, which is always we always appreciate.
No, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity and the vote of confidence. So thank you.